Shalom, Israel. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh. And we do so by Bahashem Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This video that I'm doing today is called It's a war going on outside, but Israel will be saved from it. It's a war going on outside, but Israel will be saved from it. In order for us to be saved from it, though, we have to do the work. We actually have to we have to study a lot more to show ourselves approved. You know, today in this lesson, I'm going to use the Blue Letter Bible so that way I could be able to share my precepts, my notes, to get things going. I don't want you to just to think to say, Azan, you coming out with all of these words of the Bible, but the things that we are hearing is that God is love. And God is love, but God has love for a set group of people. And that is the Israelites. So, without further ado, I'm not going to delay it. I'm not going to, slow up the process. I'm going to actually keep it going while I'm in the spirit. It's the Feast of Dedication. So I'm hoping that most of my peoples are studying to show themselves approved, to understand the Feast of Dedication. These high holy days is very important to follow. It's very important to keep. So before I get into the lesson, I want to start off with a precept. Actually, I want to start off with a few verses in this. This is Philippians chapter 1 and verse 8. For God is my record, how greatly I longed after you and all Salakia. For God is my record, how greatly I longed after you all in the bowels of Jesus Christ. When you see in this word bowels, in the Blue Letter Bible, it has tools so you could be able to look up the definition of exactly what he is meaning or what he is referring to. So we're going to look up this word bow. It is G4698. The definition of bowels: intestines, the heart, lung, and the liver. The bowels were regarded as the seat of the more violent passions, such as anger and love, but by the Hebrews as the seat of the tender affections, kindness, benevolence, compassion, hence our heart, tender mercies, affections, and etc. For God is my record, how greatly I longed after you all in the bowels of Jesus Christ. And this I pray, that your love may abound yet more in knowledge and in all judgment, that ye may approve things that are excellent, that ye may be sincere and without offense till the day of Christ. This is what we all long for, right? This is what we should be. This is what we should all be hoping for, right? Making sure that we are bound more and more in the knowledge and in all judgment. You can't just say the Lord is going to save everybody in the whole wide world without understanding the judgment that he has against majority of us, right? If we don't have knowledge of ourselves and who we are as Israelites, if we don't have the knowledge to understand that these nations don't have love for us, these nations is not going to tell us our law. These nations don't keep in mind of the Sabbath days. They don't care of the high holy days. They just look at this as this right here is just history of things that just happened and you got to get with it. You got to deal with it. We don't have to deal with this. The oppression. We don't have to deal with the lies. Right? We don't have to deal with the force of following holidays and things that's not in our law, according to us being Jews. It was times in history where Jews fought for this type of madness that was going on. Even the apostles went through certain life changes where they fought for the things that was either right or not right. And if it wasn't right, if you was zealous about anything of the law, statutes, and commandments of God, you fought for it. You didn't just sit down. You ain't just take it, right? So in this lesson that I was talking about, or the title of this class is, there's a war going on outside, but Israel will be saved from it. We got to be saved from this thing, but somebody has to lead. Somebody has to step up. It's not going to just be handed to us. It's not going to be given to us. We have to abound yet more and more in knowledge and in all judgment. We have to do that. The only way we're going to be able to do that is if you study to show yourself approved. You know? So we're going to see a king that actually had the knowledge, understood the judgments, and he wanted to do something about it. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 119 and verse 9. Blessed are the undefiled in the way, who walk in the law of the Lord. Blessed are they that keep his testimonies, and that seek him with the whole heart. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. Thou hast commanded us to keep thy precepts diligently. And this is what a command, when God commands us to keep the precepts, you're not going to understand the story of God or the things that he have done or the things that he have promised for us if we don't keep the precepts. You can't just read this as a regular plain old story. Maybe read a chapter here, maybe come back to it 10 days later, maybe read another chapter somewhere else. But everything that you're reading is all of feel good, of the hope, of the faith. There's nothing wrong with that. But we also have to keep the precepts. And when you keep the precepts, you could be able to understand the story a little bit more, where everything is becoming more clear. You mean to tell me from the beginning of time all the way until this time, you have one group of people who is all the way at the top, then you have another group of people who is all the way at the bottom, but it just so happened to be a whole bunch of black people. And you cannot tell me that these blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans don't have the good mindset to be able to be just like these other people. You mean to tell me that the sins of these people is way better than our sins? That they get to be rewarded? I'm not saying that the children of Israel is any good or anything of that nature, but we try. But we try with little effort and we could be able to bring about anything good. But if we applied our mind and used the knowledge that God actually gave us, and we kept the precepts, we kept the law and walked into it, kept the testimonies, we kept the judgments. If we did these things, the things that we are going through right now, it won't be happening. Because God sent his only begotten son to save us from our sins. Right? He gave us kings, King David, King Solomon, right? He gave us a land. He gave us statutes. He gave us judgments. He gave us a law to follow, so that way we will be defended from hurt. That's a great God. That's somebody who you should fear all the time. You should want to walk in his law all the time, right? So let's go to King David. Let's see what King David did during his time. Go to First Chronicles, chapter 20. This is the book of First Chronicles, chapter 20 and verse 1. And it came to pass that after the year was expired, at the time that the kings go out to battle, Joab led forth the power of the army and wasted the country of the children of Ammon, and came and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried at Jerusalem, and Joab smote Rabbah and destroyed it. Verse 2. And these is only a few verses. It's like maybe 8 or 10 verses. Yeah, 8 verses. And David took the crown of their king from off his head, and found it to weigh a talent of gold. And there were precious stones in it. And it was set upon David's head. And he brought also exceeding much spoil out of the city. Verse 3. And he brought out the people that were in it, and cut them with saws, and with harrows of iron, and with axes. Understanding that this is King David, man. If you go back just maybe a couple of chapters over in First Chronicles, I'm in First Chronicles chapter 20. If you go to maybe chapter 18, between 18 and 17, going on all the way up to 20, there was a great slaughter with King David. King David slew about 40,000 men. I mean, a great slaughter. Right? Now, this is the children of Ammon. The Moabites were there. The Edomites were there. Amalek was there. These nations were surrounding us, but luckily we had a king like King David who kept to the precepts, who kept to the law of God. Yes, God raised him up and made him a king, but when God leaves you with a service, you have to deliver. You cannot just think, to say the least, well, I know what God told me, but I'm looking at these people and, I'm feeling a certain kind of way. I don't think I want to judge them. I just wait till God do it. So your people is going to wind up getting destroyed. Now, this is King David, and he is cutting these people asunder with swords and harrows of iron and axes. I mean, yo, pass me the axe, bro. Let me cut this person ankle off. Let me cut this arm off, right? Because you went against the children of Israel. So if King David had to do a work, Joshua, he had to go and do a work. What makes you think we don't have to do a work to honor our Father? And he brought out the people that were in it and cut them with swords and harrows of iron and with axes. Even so dealt David with all the cities of the children of Ammon. And David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. Verse 4. And it came to pass after this, that there arose war at Gezer with the Philistines, at which time Sibbecai the Hushathite slew Sippai, that was of the children of the giant, and they were subdued. And there was war again with the Philistines, and Elhanan, the son of Jair, slew Lemai, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear staff was like a weaver's beam. Let me show you what he is talking about the weaver's beam. Look how big this giant dude is, man. Look how big that stick is that he got in his hand. That's the length of a weaver's beam. A weaver's beam is like this. So you could just see the measurement of this weaver's beam, but you see how big the stick was, man. Look how big this joint is. Look, and you got an Edomite standing right next to it because he's happy about that. These are the artifacts that they like to take pictures next to. Dig what I'm saying? Verse 5. And there was war again with the Philistines, and Elhanan, the son of Jair, slew Lemhi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear staff was like a weaver's beam. And yet again there was war at Gath, where was a man of great stature, whose fingers and toes were 24. So he had, instead of having 20 limbs between his hands and his feet, having 5 fingers, having 5 toes, this man had a total of 6 fingers on one hand, 6 fingers on the other, 6 toes on one foot, 6 toes on the other. This man was crazy looking. And then imagine him having a big, long, big spear, man, and he coming to kill you while you got your children. And yet again, there was war at Gath, where was a man of great stature, whose fingers and toes were 24, 6 on each hand, and 6 on each foot. And he also was the son of the giant. Verse 8. But when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, slew him. These were born unto the giant in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. So there was a great war going on now. David done had war with the Philistines before. He done took down Goliath, the first giant. But this man has brothers, and they're looking at it, to say the least. You know what? We're going to fight with the children of Israel. I think that my brother was a little too weak, man. And I think I can do something. And I'm going to get ahead and I'm going to go and fight. You dig what I'm saying? But they lost the battle. They kept losing the battle after battle after battle. As long as King David was there at that moment of time, it was not one battle that these people could win, right? They humiliated us, don't get me wrong. When they humiliated us, don't get me wrong. There was a time where they done did certain things, but David definitely got his payback. If you did any of David's servants wrong, David definitely got his payback. And this is what's going to happen to these nations, right? But David did the work. You're going to have to do the work. I'm not saying that we're going to be able to go and grab any type of saws right now, any type of axes right now, and go start chopping people up like Nate Turner did. Not yet. In time, it will come, but not yet. Until this time, we have to contend for the faith. We have to abound more and more in knowledge, and we have to seek out the judgments in these testimonies and keep the precepts. Right? You got a lot of soothsayers out there. Oh, well, I don't believe that you have to do that. But if the Bible tells us that this is what has to be stated, how can I not state the things that I'm supposed to state? Who are you to tell me I'm not supposed to state these things? That these things is not going to come to pass if it was already done for me, if it was already demonstrated for me, and to show me how these things is going to go. Right? These things is important, man. Let's go to the book of Revelations, chapter 2. This is the book of Revelations, chapter 2, verse 26. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works until the end. That means that you have to keep whatever God commanded us in the first 5 books, whatever he commanded the prophets, we have to actually do the work of that. You have to proclaim it. You have to talk about it. You have to contend for it. Just because all nations are saying, oh, God this, God that, that doesn't mean that they are your direct neighbor. That doesn't mean that they care for the things that you care about. In fact, they hoping that you don't take this knowledge. They hoping that you don't get this understanding. They hope that you don't look at Revelations 22, 2 and 26. They hoping that you don't keep the precepts. They hoping that you forget all of the fact of how much slavery we done put y'all through. We want y'all to forget that. Don't even think about that no more. Why y'all even thinking about that? Why do y'all even care for that? Don't care about that. Look at what we giving you. We giving you food stamps so you could be able to get SNAP benefits, right? We give you a little Section 8. Digging what I'm saying? We help you out in the smallest way as possible. You should be just happy with that. But we're not happy with that because that's not the way it was supposed to be. Over time, if people would have told us that our stubbornness, our disobedience towards the law, statutes, and commandments was going to bring us all of this grief, I think we would have followed suit sooner, right? We would have overcome sooner, but we haven't. We haven't, because this knowledge has been read to us. And because it's been read to us, we didn't seek it out ourselves. We didn't show ourselves approved. We didn't actually make sure that the people that was reading this to us, some of these Pharisees, some of these pastors, some of these priests, some of these soothsayers, some of these fake prophets, some of these witches that's thinking that they're Cleo, right? I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna read your sign, and I'm gonna manifest something for you. That way you could be able to understand and live with for a certain period of time, right? You're not gonna find that in this law, statutes, and commandments. You're not gonna find nothing nice in here. Verse 26. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I, even as I received of my Father. Understand that this is the book of Revelations, right? This has not happened yet, but it will. This right here will soon come to pass, but that's going to happen only for the men that actually can overcome his transgression. He could start seeking the Lord. This is going to happen for the man who is not laden with sin, who understands the truth, who doesn't want to live in a lie no more, right? This is going to happen for the man that actually keeps the precept, who actually walks into the law, right? You keeping his testimonies, you keeping his high holy days, such as the Feast of Dedication, such as Passover, such as Pentecost, first fruits, the new moons, the Feast of Tabernacles, blowing of the trumpets, doing your days of atonement, loving your brother earnestly, even if he doesn't know this information and you still willing to teach this man. And this man is rejecting you. All right, he rejected you today. Go at him again tomorrow. But every soul of the children of Israel shall be saved so they could be able to perform this work. Because this will be a job that's going to be done. It's not like, just to say the least, you just going to if my thing is this, when I read this, when I read these, when I keep these precepts, if you mean to tell me that there's going to be other people in the kingdom of heaven, God is going to save everybody. So then if there's good people and good people inside of the kingdom, who is going to be beaten with this rod of iron right here? Who's going to be broken into shivers if you were so good? Now, if you're saying, well, there's going to be some bad people up in there, but, then these people that's bad is going to be beaten with the shiver. They're going to be beaten and broken as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers. You don't do what we say. You don't want to keep the Feast of Dedication. You don't want to keep the Sabbath and high holy days the way the Lord prescribed. At the end of the day, we're going to have to beat you with this rod, homie. You don't want to listen. You don't want to grow your beard out. All right, yo, pass me the axe. Pass me that same saw that David was using. I'm going to cut these people. And when they pass me the axe, man, I want that axe to be dull. I don't even want it to be sharp. I want to hit at least 2 or 3 times with it. I want to whack it. Take my time, too, while the blood dripping off my face. So there's going to be some people that's in the kingdom, yes. But there's going to be people in the kingdom that kept the works of the Lord. And then there's going to be people in the kingdom that's going to be beaten with the iron rod. And we're going to be breaking these people into shivers, man, for all of the things that they done did to God's children, to his people. He going to give us power over the nations. Let's go to Isaiah. Watch this. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 60 and verse 10. Slovakia. And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. So he gonna have mercy on us. Yeah, he smote us in the beginning, We had to go through all of this turmoil. We had to go through all of this suffering. We had to go through all of this oppression. We had to get killed off, right? But if you starting to overcome, if you starting to seek out the judgments, you starting to walk into the laws, at the end of the day, that wrath that he had against us is going to be turned to other nations, and he's going to have favor on us, and he's going to give us that mercy. You're gonna get a rod of iron on in your hand, and the same thing that these nations did, you're gonna be doing the same thing. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Ain't that the slogan? Verse 11. Therefore, thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. So understanding that, obviously, Jews and Gentiles does matter. The difference between the Jews and the difference between the Gentiles. You have two different types of Gentiles into the Bible. The children of Israel were called Gentiles because of the customs and because of the Hellenization that went on during the Maccabean era. And during that Maccabean era, that Hellenization came from the Greeks, forcing us to eat pork, forcing us to dress in clothing that wasn't made for us, follow certain laws that wasn't made for us. So yes, we were following these customs, but it didn't mean that suddenly, if I'm a Hebrew Israelite today, tomorrow I'm Chinese. That doesn't work like that. It's just that you followed the custom of the Chinese, and you have the opportunity through the mercy and the spirit of the Lord, he will take you out of that custom and you start to follow your own custom. And then once we get that, the forces of the Gentiles is going to be brought, and we're going to punish them. That's thus saith the Lord. You can't soothsay that. And I wonder why people don't even talk about things like this. You can go to Paul as much as you want. I went to Paul before I did this particular video right here, just to pull up a precept, just so I could be able to get you to understand my dedication toward you all, my dedication towards the Father, me honoring his Son for what he done did for all of us, to proclaim his word. If he was here right now, he will be proclaiming every word that is written in this Bible. That's what he did when he came down. Why should I change that? Right? Let's go to Deuteronomy. Let's see what the Lord has to say. This is the book of the law called Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whether the Lord thy God have driven thee. Verse 2. And shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Verse 3. That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations, whether the Lord thy God have scattered thee. Verse 4. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. That means we done went from Israel, we done went through Africa, we done went through China, we done came to the Americas, right? No matter where we are at, he is going to fetch us and he is going to save us and take you up out of that from among the nations. not with the nations. I'm taking you from among the nations. The same way he did it in Egypt. I took you from among that nation of cruel bondage. And I redeemed you. I redeemed the children of Israel. I gave them my law and I told them to follow it and keep it. And if you don't follow it and keep it, you're going to go right back into Egypt. You're going to go right back into bondage. You're going to be servitudes. You're going to be spoiled with the flatteries of other nations and the way they delegate things. I didn't give them my power. I gave it to the children of Israel. Right? And I hope that's understood. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. What is the problem with having dominion? Verse 5. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. We're going to even be better than Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We're going to be way better than Judah. We're going to be way better than Joseph. We're going to be way better than the 12 patriarchs. We're going to be way better than the 600,000. We're going to be way better than King David and Solomon put together. Could you imagine? And these people were great men. These people were honorable. And we're going to be greater than that. But you got to do a work for it. You can't just get that and just think that you don't have to do anything for it. You gotta show yourself approved. You got to understand this knowledge right here. You got to start bringing this out. You got to look at your neighbor next to you who is of your brother, of an Israelite, and actually redeem them. Let them know about this information. Make sure he is following the Sabbath day if you keeping the Sabbath day. Making sure he keep the Feast of Dedication if you keeping the Feast of Dedication. Making sure this man pray 3 times a day. Making sure he fasting and staying into the spirit. If you do these things, right? And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. Verse 6. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Verse 7. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. Right? So here it is now. Why would I go against that? Why would I think, to say the least, that all nations is going to be saved under the grace of God? They had a time period where they could have did right. They could have read this and say, yo, you know what? We about to suffer a wrongful death, man. It's going to be a great slaughter, just like the same way King David did. When he was killing off the Philistines, when he was killing off Ammon, when he was smiting Edom, he was smiting Amalek. We're going to get that same punishment if we keep on doing what we're doing to the children of Israel that's scattered abroad and that's living among us. The people that we're persecuting, right? They had a grace period, but their grace period and their time is about to be up. You think the Lord is going to really sit there and allow these people to continue to do these things? No. But the man that actually makes it to the end, and he's walking in this law, and he's doing the works thereof, you will be saved out of this. But you got to wait. You got to be patient. I wanted this to happen yesterday, but it didn't. I wanted it to happen the year I started doing this, but it didn't. And look at me now. 1,000+ days later, I'm still studying. I'm still showing to try to figure out a way where I could explain and give off a lesson that will be a good exhortation for my brothers and sisters. So it doesn't solely look like I'm just hating or I'm looking like I know more information than my fellow neighbors. And if I do, I'm willing to share it. I'm not stingy. I don't want to hold this. I don't want to be doing this by myself neither. Right? But you have to be willing to be broken down, come out of your lie, so you could be able to be built up in the truth. Right? This is something that's been hidden from us for a long time. Our eyes been closed to this for a long time. Right? Now is the time that we could be able to come together and find out our history, find out the truth, right? Let's get one more. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 14. This is the book of Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. At that point in time, they're going to try to beg. They're going to try to ask for mercy, because now that they see that the Most High God now is going to give us the power, he's going to actually have that love, and he's going to shine that light on us. And once they see this, oh, well, we knew that y'all was going to be saved eventually, and hopefully to try to do something nice, try to make us an apple pie or something. I don't want your apple pie. I don't want anything it is that you're trying to offer me at that moment in time, because I made sure I stayed steadfast with the Lord. I stuck in the law. I walked into the law. I did his testimonies. I proclaimed his testimonies. I read his judgments. I proclaimed his judgments. And nobody believed me. So because nobody ain't believe me, don't think that I'm going to be nice to you because nobody was nice to my ancestors. It was a wicked thing for you guys to keep Thanksgiving, but y'all won't keep the Feast of Dedication according to the Lord. So y'all forced this Thanksgiving thing on every nation. Y'all forcing Christmas on every nation to make sure we fill up y'all pockets with the money, to make y'all rich. They made billions off of the traveling weekend over the holidays for Thanksgiving. Where's our money? Where's my gratuity at? For y'all stepping and walking on my ancestors' backs the way y'all have. Where's my gratuity at? Where's it at? Where's my cash? I want you to sock it to my pocket, elbows deep. I want my money to you be putting in my pocket. But being as though y'all didn't do that now, and y'all gonna wait all the way until the end, yeah, y'all gonna try to cleave to me, and these things are gonna happen. Verse 2. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. This is what I wanted to do, though. I wanted to get that same verse, Lord willing, if it could work. I wanted to get that same verse in the GNT. The GNT version. I don't know if y'all can see it. Lord willing, it'll work. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14 and verse 1. And GNT. Yeah, I want it in the GNT to show you how extensive this is. The Lord will once again be merciful to his people Israel and choose them as his own. He will let them live in their own land again, and foreigners will come and live there with them. Many nations will help the people of Israel return to the land which the Lord gave them. And there, the nations will serve Israel as slaves. It doesn't say as we're just going to be friends and neighbors and I'm going to ask you for coffee. You're going to serve Israel as slaves. Those who once captured Israel will now be captured by Israel, and the people of Israel will rule over those who once oppressed them. So the reason why I wanted to go to the GNT, you could read that in the NIV as well. You can be able to read that in the NIV as well, understanding that when you read it in the different translations, there's nothing wrong with the other translations. I like the KJV because it's more word for word, and I don't have a problem with breaking it down and going into the dictionary and maybe actually breaking it down myself. Having the Blue Letter Bible also allows you to do that as well. So to understand that you are going to be slaves to us. We was oppressed and we still oppressed now. We're going to get that same back. You reap what you sow. I don't know if anybody of the children of Israel believe in karma, but I do. I definitely believe in karma. Yeah, no. I definitely believe in karma, right? So these people who oppressed us, we're going to oppress them. Verse 3. And it shall come to pass then that in the day of Salakia, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. How did America actually fall down this big? How did all of these kingdoms, man, fall down so big? They knew so much, had all of this money, had all of this power of oppression, putting people in bondage, changing people names, right? Changing the Hebrews, changing the real Jews that's of this Bible, changing their heritage, right? Making them worship and sacrifice of things that we're not supposed to be sacrificing. Making our knowledge to become of their knowledge, of a Greek fashion, a European fashion, a Roman fashion, right? An African fashion, right? How has that ceased? I can't wait for that day I get to say that precept to them. Verse 5. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. That's the day when we be able to actually see that glorious power of the Lord. When he cracked that sky, when he coming to get us. All things is going to stop at that point. If you notice, during the run or the trial of Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, through Christ's run, from 1 AD to 32 AD, yes, there was peace for that man, but it wasn't so peaceful. The neighborhoods that he was running through, Galilee was crazy. Galilee would be like, if this was New York City, it would be like Brooklyn, the worst part in Brooklyn. You digging what I'm saying? He was in the worstest parts of areas where they wanted to persecute and kill him. But yet, there wasn't no war going on. Nobody was throwing daggers. Nobody was throwing bombs. Nobody was doing any of that. Right? Because he's the King of Peace. So because of this factor, this second time around, oh yeah. This second time around, there's not going to be no such thing as it's going to be another group of people in power. They're going to try to start off a census. They're going to start taxes, anything of that nature. We got next. That's what I call this. The children of Israel got next, all 12 tribes. But we got to seek the judgment. We got to walk in the law. We got to do his testimonies. The law, statutes, and commandments is not done until all of these laws get fulfilled. Everything that the prophets have said, until that gets done, we're not going to get anything. Right? Let me get a couple of more precepts and verses and then give you a little history of what's going on. Let me go to Matthew chapter 24. Right? This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 35. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. There's no way in the world there's anything that was written in this Bible is going to just be forgotten about. Isaiah 14, Isaiah 60, Revelations 2 and 26, Deuteronomy 30. These things have to come to pass, and it will. Those that's doing the work for it, they know it. The ones that's not doing the work for it, you better get hip to it. And you better be doing it sooner than later. Don't think about it. Don't wager it. Don't think, to say the least, you know what? I don't think that this is really going to happen. You know what? A white man wrote this Bible, and you know what? I'm not even going to follow this suit. There's going to be 2/3 of the children of Israel that's going to be destroyed just because a lack of knowledge and because they reject God, because they reject his love, they reject his mercy. This time and that he has given us to find out this knowledge. This time that he has given us for us to walk into his judgments, to do his testimonies, to keep his high holy days. Making yourself a living sacrifice. Right? Let me drop down to 45. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 45. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? He's not talking about actual, I want you to go to your nearest supermarket and I want you to be able to give them some steaks, man. Go get them some turkey chops, anything of that nature. No, he's talking about giving you the thing that we eat off of, the thing that we need to be eating off of. This knowledge right here, right? And you're given this particular knowledge in its due season. During the Feast of Dedication right now is a season. It's a time that you are supposed to be remembering all of the things that was done during the Maccabean era. And if you see right now, we are lacking that Maccabean feeling. Right? We are lacking that power that King David once had. We don't have it. Every day we running up and down the street with our tails between our legs. Because of these other nations and how they're ruling over us, how they're doing us, how they're treating us. And because we don't have the foreknowledge of the Lord exactly, we don't understand why it's happening to us. We complain and we murmur about the things that we want to change, but we're not looking to change it ourselves. It starts with us. You got to make yourself a living sacrifice. It says what? Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. This is what you want to be doing. You want to be out there talking to the people. You want to be if you're in your household and you have fellow neighbors that's of the children of Israel, they don't know who they are. You want to be giving them exactly their knowledge and their understanding according to this. You want to be discussing this. So when he does come, he catches you doing this, you're considered blessed, right? You're considered loved by the Lord, right? You're going to receive that mercy. You're going to be able to get that rod of iron in your hand. You're going to be able to get that sword. You're going to be able to get that axe and rule these nations, man. Verse 47. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming. And this is what we have a lot of in the children of Israel. They count slackness, right? Well, the time ain't come yet. Dude, we've been going through this for so long over time. I don't believe it, right? That's part of faith. That part right there of believing in something is actually that part of faith. But also, not just believing in a thing, but you also have to do a work for it continually. So you have to endure to the end, like Revelations 2:26 say. With the work thereof. You can't just solely believe, but not put the work into it. You got to put the work into it. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants. This is what they do. We try to warn you. We try to admonish our neighbors. You tell us that you're Christians. You tell us that you are atheists. You tell us that you don't believe. You don't have to do this. Everybody in the whole world is going to be saved according to John 3:16. You could do whatever you want. The law is done away with. I can eat pork. I can, all of these things. That's you smiting your fellow servants. Somebody that's actually trying to help you out with a work that you did not do. Right? There's nothing wrong with actually admonishing your fellow servant. But if you're going to smite your fellow servant when one person is trying to bring you up to par in this, you considered wrong for that. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken. A lot of people done ate and sat there for Thanksgiving and did what they did with the drunkards, did with the disobedient and disloyal people that's not walking into the Lord. People refuse to walk into the Lord, right? People whose heart is not even turned all the way to the Lord. Take God's law for a joke. And to eat and drink with the drunken. Verse 50. The Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of. 51. And shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is what's going to happen, man. These are the these are the things that's going to happen when you doubt or you don't even believe that the Lord is going to come through and deliver his people. You don't believe that you have to follow the laws, and you start to smite your neighbor. You start to call him all types of things. Just because he used to do evil and he stopped and he's now doing this, you can't remember a person's past if he's doing something righteous at this point. But yet, this is what we have. This is how I know we are the children of Israel. We so spicy. We talk so feisty. We talk with arrogance. We so prideful. We believe in unrealistic things, but when it comes to realistic things, we don't believe that. Our faith only goes as so far as what we may believe, what we can may touch. And to go to tell this to a person, man, you have to actually have the patience to want to do this. Repeatedly wanting to tell him. Even if he smites you, you have to want to tell him some more, wanting to tell him some more. But it's going to come a time where you're going to be smiting your fellow servant for telling you the truth, for trying to admonish you, for trying to correct you. And that time is going to come when the Lord is going to see it and say, yo, you know what? Now I'm going to appoint you your portion with the hypocrites. It's not that you didn't have faith. You had the faith. You believed, but you didn't have the works to follow. And because of that, you believed whatever it is that you wanted to believe. So because your unbelief of the truth, as opposed to your belief in the lie, it caused you to smite your fellow servants. It caused you to go against exactly what the truth was. You started to eat and drink with the drunkards. Right? You don't want that. This is not what we want. Right? Let me see if I can get something. Around this time, this was the time of King David. And King David, here go the children of Ammon, right? Here go Gezer. Here go Gath down here. You had Moab down here. You had Edom. And King David took control of all of this country. All of this country. Wasn't nothing left that wasn't undone. Right? Because that was the country that God gave us. God gave us Israel. He made sure he was the king of that. He made sure he took care of that. He made sure he conquered that. Wasn't no other nations that's going to be coming in here if I'm the king and he gave me this land to possess it. Right? It's very important to understand that we did have people that was doing things. My next video is going to be about the Maccabees and the Feast of Dedication. And during the Maccabean era, they even fought great wars. See what I'm saying? They fought great wars. So during that time, it was very important to understand that time of King David. And when King David did what he did, man, I applaud King David every time. Anytime I read something in Psalms, I don't look at the nice part of, oh, Jesus, you saved me from my enemies. Oh, Lord. No. I look at that time as that, yo, yeah, when you did do what you did, King David, you had that right to say that line. You rescued me from my enemies because it was a great slaughter. You're talking 20,000, 40,000 at one point, 18,000 here, 10,000 there. I mean, it was just a great slaughter, right? This is what I wanted to show you. Trying to get it into my screen. Give me a second. By 1100 BC, Armenian tribes throughout northern and western Syria formed petty competing kingdoms. On the coast, seafaring Canaanites, known to the Greeks as Phoenicians, re-established maritime trade with Egypt and the eastern Aegean. Further south, the Philistine coastal cities maintained close contact with Cyprus. In the interior highlands, small kingdoms emerged, including Israel, Judah, Ammon, Moab, and Edom. From the middle of the 9th through the end of the 7th century BC, the armies of Assyria, in their quest for booty and tribute, repeatedly attacked the Leviathan cities. The reason why I wanted to show you this is because from 1000 BC all the way to 1 AD, this was what the Syrian Empire had a thought in mind of. They used to form petty competing kingdoms on who gonna be able to, who can we set up the most? We want you to be able to do these particular like things. You dig what I'm saying? To oppress the people, get them interested into our way of life. We got to set up these kingdoms so these people can be able to go to it. And during the time, Israel and Judah was amongst of it. We was doing trade. But during the time of King David and King Solomon, we didn't have to worry about these particular kings, all these kingdoms emerging until King David and King Solomon died. Once King David and King Solomon died, King Solomon's son Ahab was reigning. And once he died, Moab, they rebelled against Israel. And when they rebelled against Israel, they had a plan in their minds of remembering everything it is that King David done did to their forefathers, and they want payback, right? They wanted payback for this particular thing. And they made sure that they was going to get it. This wasn't just going to be just some, we're going to forget about what King David did and we're going to live and sing Kumbaya. Nah. We got beef with the children of Israel and we're going to oppress them. At this particular time, after King Solomon, our kingdom split. You had the northern kingdom and then you have the southern kingdom. You had the king of Judah, between Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. That was the Jews. And then you had Israel, Ephraim, Issachar, Naphtali, and everybody else. So because of this factor, when you had our kingdom split, they used that and say, you know what, let's divide and conquer, right? Judah might be a little too strong for us, but Israel, we might be able to manipulate them a little bit more, right? So we have to understand that there's two different types of Gentiles into the nations or in our Bible. Group of Gentiles would be the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Amalekites, right? Assyria. Then you have us as Gentiles that was following these customs, such as the children of Israel. Then you had a Maccabean era that was from about 170 BC, somewhere around that factor, where Alexander the Great came in and he Hellenized us. But before that, that was around Alexander the Great. That was around like 320 BC. When he started Hellenizing all the Jews and making us follow their customs, make us wrestle with underwears on with our ass cheeks out, oil on our bodies and wrestling. I'm pretty sure you seen the movie Django. If you seen the movie Django, remember they had two wrestlers that was fighting. I forgot what they called that wrestling Mandingo fighting. No homo. And what the people would do, man, is you have two black people get together and fight it out and duel it out all the way until one is dead. And these is the type of customs that was going on during the time of Alexander the Great's era. And we was following this custom. They made us pay tribute to the king, right? They made us do and worship all of these things that was unlawful for us. So you have two different types of Gentiles into the Bible. I just wanted to show you this little bit of history to show you from 1000 BC all the way to 1 AD, Syria's main goal was to make us booty and tribute. You pay me, you pay us for all of this pettiness that we got going on. And if you look at it today in 2021, we are still being used as booty and tribute. I hope we could be able to start to amend our ways, change our approach, right? Start to seek the Lord a little bit more. I hope this exhortation reaches those who is actually looking to be learned, who's looking to be taught, who's looking to understand, right? Put this into your heart. Walk in his law, walk in his testimonies. Start to proclaim his judgments, his statutes. You ain't going to get a stronger testimony than this right here to coming into this foreknowledge right here of who your God is. And by this, I'm going to end this lesson off by giving all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh. And I'm going to do so by Bahashem HaMashiach Yahweh Shai. Shalom, people.